But when I response, human beings have the freedom to pause and choose their response. And thought about that. Do I have the freedom to pause and choose my response? That's what the leaders got to do. Got to keep a drip going somehow, some way. But it's the drip that's gonna do all the transforming and changing of people. They were gung ho about that. They had never went through a process like that. A lot of them were apprehensive, as they are on the front end, the first day or two.
Sure.
What to do? Sit around like we're in third grade and read a book together. Hello and welcome to another episode of Real People Getting Real Results. And today you see Rhea's back with us. And if you watched last week, you saw her on the show. This week's going to be a little different. She's actually going to be interviewing me so I can share some things with you. But before we get started, I just want to thank everyone for listening to the show on the Blue Collar Leadership podcast, or either watching the show on the Blue Collar Leadership YouTube channel. So you got two options with that. We upload it to both places, but it's primarily for the YouTube channel. All right, Rhea. So you get to ask me some stuff, and I get to share some thoughts with the folks, because I've gotten some crazy results in my life considering where I come from.
Yeah, you absolutely have. And we last week when you interviewed me, we already covered like how did we actually know each other. So I don't think we have to go back and do that over again. So yeah, super excited to just do this episode with you and maybe dig into some things that we don't talk about as much, or you don't get to talk about as much, because usually you're the one asking the questions on the podcast. So kind of excited to dig in. One of the things that when you say that you have gotten amazing results, I've seen that from you personally, but also on a professional level. So maybe start off with just sharing some of the personal transformation that you've had and how you've gotten some real results using the leadership principles, personal growth principles that we teach.
Yeah, one of the big ones that I talk about a lot and is my temper, and knowing my background's manufacturing. I started working in manufacturing in 1988 on the front lines, entry level frontline factory worker, operating all different types of machines, CNC lathes, mills, and drills. And like a lot of us blue collar folks on the front line, I had problems with my temper, and throughout my now I'm 55. I was 18 when I started working in manufacturing. Worked in the plants for 20 years. I eventually started working my way up after about 10 years. But what I know is there's a lot of folks out there who have problems controlling themselves, and that holds them back. And so, fortunately for me, I discovered leadership development and personal growth in 2008, 20 years into my career. I could have used it a little bit sooner, but I started accidentally getting better. But I just had a bad temper. In 2008, when I discovered the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, I was able to really reflect on who I was and how I was. And I learned the most important principle that I've ever learned. I learned in 2008, and it come from a 1-hour audio, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which was my first introduction to this type of content. And in that, pretty quick into that audio, Dr. Covey says, between stimulus and response, human beings have the freedom to pause and choose their response. And I guarantee you, Rhea, there's a lot of leaders out there that wish some of the folks on their team would pause and choose their response, because they cause themselves and their leaders and their organization a lot of problems because they can't control themselves. But I was one of those folks for a long time, and I had accidentally gotten better. But when I heard him say between stimulus and response, human beings have the freedom to pause and choose their response, I literally did it. I was listening to my stereo in my car, and I literally hit the pause button and thought about that. Do I have the freedom to pause and choose my response? And it took me 5 or 6 times. I'd let it play, and then I'd rewind it, and I'd let it play, and I was just thinking about it. And I finally agreed with him that I do have the freedom to pause and choose my response, because I could validate it throughout my career. I had done that personally and professionally. I could think of many times where I wanted to get angry and I didn't. It could have been because I was dealing with the law, or dealing with a boss, or dealing with a parent, one of my parents, that I wanted to get angry at and I didn't, or a school teacher, all kind of people, worker, plenty of people, plenty of times I could validate that I did have that power, but I could also validate that most of the time I didn't use it. So I started thinking about it after that moment. But that's one of the things that you and I bring to the table when we're out speaking. We teach principles. That right there, what I just shared, that's one of the biggest things we share when we're out talking to companies and organizations. And we have so many people that resonates with. They come up and talk to us at breaks, and after we're done speaking, they come up and they want to talk about that one some more.
You said that you validated to yourself after you thought about it. Yes, I do have that freedom and that power to choose my response. And I have, you reflected back on times you've gotten it right. What made you want to get it right more often? What was the trigger that said, not only can I get it right, but I want to get it right?
Yeah, I guess the biggest trigger was as I didn't change that day. I just heard about it that day. I didn't really learn to actually do it that day. I had just heard about it. And then I started listening to that every day. I listened to that audio, and then I started reading more books. And slowly I got better. It's kind of like weightlifting. You don't go in and double how much weight you can lift on day one, even if you want to. You got to ease into it. You got to build up your strength and stamina. And it's kind of the same way with the mental muscle. But what happened was, as I started reading other books, that thought never went away about I need to control myself better. But as I started reading other books, I started to realize the impact not being able to control myself had on my ability to influence other people, including my boss, including my coworkers, including, getting raises, including getting promotions, and all these things that it was holding me back on. So when I started reading these other books, I started to realize it was a lot of things I needed to work on, but that was a big one, because anybody out there listening today, all I got to do is ask you that simple question. If you were the boss and you had two people on your team and they were both superstars, but one of them could control themselves no matter what went wrong, but the other one, the slightest little thing, they go ballistic, start acting crazy. They'll calm down eventually, but they go acting a fool to start with. That was me. I was the one always going crazy and acting a fool all the time.
You weren't that bad. I married you.
Well, as we shared in our last episode, and if they want to know our story, how we met and all that, we'll tell them real quickly. That was in 2000. So it's been 24 years we've been together, but I was 30 years old when we met. So I had accidentally gotten a lot better from 18 to 30, but I still had a whole lot of work to do. But that was the catalyst, is when I started realizing, just in general, I wanted to increase my influence as much as possible with positive people of high character. So that's what I knew, because that scenario I was asking a minute ago, if you had two superstars on your team, one of them can control themselves, one can't. They report to you. You're the boss. You're dependent on them. When they lose control, they're causing you problems that you have to deal with, and causing you stress, and maybe causing between each other, maybe causing problems with the customer. Who knows who they're causing problems with? But it's obvious. If I ask you as a boss, you had those two people on your team, which one would you promote? It's obvious. It's the one who can control themselves. Which one would you give a raise to if you had enough money to give one of them a raise? Or if there was a downturn in the economy or in your business and you got to let one go, which one's it going to be? It's going to be the one that can't control themselves. And just in general, as a leader, if I told you the only thing I'm going to tell you about two people, you can add either one of these people to your team. The only thing I'm going to tell you about them is one of them can control themselves, one of them can't. Which one you going to want on your team? And it's so easy we call it looking out the window, Rhea, right? It's so easy to look out the window in that scenario I just said and know exactly which person you're going to pick. You're going to pick the person that can control themselves. And it's the same way on a personal level. If you were a single person out there and I was going to introduce you to two people that you might potentially want to date, and I said, I'm only going to tell you one thing about each one of these folks. One of them can control themselves, one of them can't. On a personal level, which one would people pick? They'd pick the person who could control themselves. So, those kind of things I started reflecting on and thinking about, not all at one time, not all on the first day. It was an evolution, but I started, asking myself these kind of questions, because I had to figure out, how can I validate that these principles that I'm learning about are actually true? So I had to come up with these little scenarios in my own mind, like I just asked that question, to the folks who are watching, I had to start asking myself these same questions so I could start validating, is all this stuff I'm learning really true? Is going to really help me? And now we've seen, I've seen it in my own life. You've seen it in your life. We've taught so many people, training and development. We spoke so many places. We've written lots of books. I've got 15 books, and one of them's co-authored with you. And in all these books, I'm sharing all these principles and all these stories to help other people validate, help individuals be able to climb to the next level and beyond, like we're all talking about, like I've done personally, like you've done personally, but also for leaders who wish their folks would control themselves. That's just one principle, right? There's lots of other ones, but that's a big one that causes a lot of frustration and stress for leaders.
So talking about that, and you touched on personally, like getting results on the personal side, and switch over to the professional side for a moment. How do you help leaders get results? What does that look like, and how do you help leaders get results for themselves and for their team, their organization?
Yeah, so when we talk about leaders, the formal authority leaders, those who have people reporting to them, the first thing we got to help them do is we got to help them think at a higher level. That's why we write so many books. That's why we read so many books. If you want to operate as a leader, if you want to operate at a higher level, you've got to think at a higher level, and you got to think at a higher level before you get to operate at a higher level. So you got to pay the price on the front end before you go and reap the reward on the tail end, so to speak. So the first thing we got to do is what you and I always say when we're out speaking is we're here to provoke thought and raise awareness. So we want to, one way we get leaders to think at a different level is we got to provoke that thought. Just like the scenario we just went through. If we were in a room talking to a group of leaders, and I'm asking questions and they're nodding their head and they've got problems with folks who can't control themselves, and then I'd ask them, look in the mirror. Have you ever not been able to control yourself as a leader, where that caused you problems? We've met leaders. I know we've met leaders who they lost some really good people because really good people don't want to follow leaders who can't control themselves, right? It works both ways. So the first thing we got to do is to get leaders to be able to, what I call, unleash their team's potential. We got to get them to unleash their own potential first. We tell people all the time, we have leaders engage the front line to improve the bottom line. And we do that by developing the blue collar workforce and those who lead and support them. But a lot of times leaders think they want to bring us in and just focus on developing the people. But those people are exactly where their leaders have led them to be. So yes, we can go in and we can grow and develop the people, but if we don't grow and develop the leaders at the same time, well, then the opposite's going to happen. Instead of that leader getting a great team, the leader's still going to be the problem. And the folks who actually buy into what we're selling, they're going to figure out they don't want to follow that leader who's not growing and developing themselves with them. So then the best people are going to leave. So the organization still stays the same. John Maxwell teaches that, calls it the law of the lid. The organization can outgrow the lid on the organization, and the lid is the top level leader. And so it's a two-pronged approach that we always trying to do. We're trying to develop leaders and also develop their team members.
So you and I talk a lot about one of the best tools to facilitate that growth, both in the leader themselves and in the team, is using the book study, right? Because it's more about the daily little touches, the daily growth, the daily leadership drip, if you will. So share some of the results, or if you can think of a story or an example of a leader you worked with who did the book studies with their team and got real results.
Yeah, there's a couple of different folks, and I actually, after I share what I'm talking about, I want you to share some of your story about leading the book study. I don't think you shared that in the interview I did with you, but it'll fit here. And do you remember if you shared that? I don't think you did.
No, I shared it when we recorded the video on how to facilitate a high impact book study. So
okay, so that's the link right there. If you're listening, that link is bluecollarleadership.com/book study training. There's a 45-minute video of Rhea and I teaching how to facilitate a book study, which is what I'm about to talk about. So we got lots of examples of folks doing this, and I'm going to give you two examples, and both of them you can actually watch the folks talk about it from their frame of reference in this Real People Getting Real Results series. One of them is episode 1. That's the vice president of electrical construction, Jason Denham. If you go watch that episode, you can hear him talk about it from his viewpoint as a high level leader. And then episode 11 is Jim McEwen, and he's an entry level frontline worker, and he facilitates book studies. So got an example of a vice president facilitating book studies, and an example of a frontline worker doing the book studies. And you don't have to trust what I'm telling you, although I hope you do. But you can go watch those 2 episodes, number 1, number 11, and hear them talk about it. But I'm going to talk about a time when we went in and we actually facilitated book studies.
Mm-hmm.
And that time we actually went into a $1 billion organization. It was actually Bluebird Bus down in I forget where it was, Fort Valley, Georgia, I think is where they were at. And we went in there, and you and I together, we facilitated. They were looking for cultural transformation, and that's what we wanted to help them with. We went in, we took Blue Collar Leadership and Supervision, Unleash Your Team's Potential. That book has Blue Collar Leadership books and a lot of our other. And we went in, they gave us 11 teams of 10 people. We basically had 110 top leaders of this organization, consisted of about 1,700 people. And so we had all the formal authority leaders. Everybody who had someone reporting to them was on those teams, including the CEO, the C-level people, everybody. They were all mixed up. We didn't just do the top C-level on one team. We mixed, all the teams were just mixed up. You may have a CEO sitting next to a frontline supervisor, that thing. And so what we did was most of the people do 1 chapter per week or a couple of chapters per week at different times. But what we did was actually 3 chapters per day for 10 days in a row. So we really accelerated it. They were gung-ho to get us in there and do this, and they were excited about it. So it took about 30 minutes with each 10-person team to facilitate a book study. So we did that 11 times each day for 10 days. Same chapter with different groups of people.
I think I knew your book better than you did at that point, because we went through those chapters a lot with those different groups.
Yep. And they didn't know what was coming. The CEO brought us in. We talked for about an hour to everybody on the first day and told them what was coming. Then the second day, we actually, there was 11 days we were there. So the first day of the book studies, they knew what was coming, but they didn't know what to expect. So, and neither did the CEO. He just trusted us. He had never done anything like that. So what was amazing though was after just 3 or 4 days, so we were 9 to 12 chapters in. Those leaders were talking about how powerful that was. They were talking about how they needed this years and years and years ago, because like in a lot of organizations, a lot of times people are promoted just because they do a good job. And then they figure out how to do a good job at the next level, and they might get promoted again, and they figure out how to do a job at the next level. But a lot of companies, as you know, Rhea, a lot of companies don't do any leadership development as they promote people, especially into their first leadership position. Sometimes the higher ranked people, they get to go to some conferences and do some things like that. But in a lot of blue collar organizations, nobody does that. So for most of these folks, these 110 leaders, most of them had never had any leadership development. Most of them had not been to a conference and all that. The masses of people in an organization are not the top level leaders. They're the further down the org chart you go, the more leaders there are. So down on the frontline supervision, team lead type positions, there's a lot of people in a big organization. So all these people were very, very grateful. They were thanking the CEO for bringing us in there, and he was blown away. And he was being humbled and saying, I should have done this a long time ago. I shouldn't have waited. And it was really cool. So in that specific scenario, we started hearing stories, because these folks, we raised their thought. We raised their level of awareness and provoked thought through the book study. So everybody, basically what we do is we listen to an audio of the book. Everybody's got a real book. They follow along. They highlight. It takes 6 or 7 minutes to go through a chapter. And then each person gets up to 1 minute to share their key takeaway and why. And that the why part is a little micro lesson. It's a little story. So when I share the key point, or somebody else does, you got 10 people sharing a key point that resonated with them. That's just re-emphasizing some key points that stood out to people. But when people tell their why, in that case, 10 people on a team, you get 10 little micro stories. And so I'll just share right here, when we tell a story, other people tell themselves a story. And that's the story that people really need to hear when they're going through a lesson, is the one they're telling themselves. So when we hear other people's stories, it provokes us to think at a different level. So it was really powerful, though. We went, 10 days later, they were gung-ho about that. They had never went through a process like that. A lot of them were apprehensive, as they are on the front end, the first day or two.
Sure.
What do, sit around like we're in third grade and read a book together. But it usually doesn't take very long. And I mean, they were fired up. And what they did was, after we got done, they got another one of our books, Blue Collar Leadership and Teamwork, I think was the one they went to. Can't remember. It might have been the Frontlines book, but they've done them both now. I can't remember which one they did second. Anyway, they got one of the other books, and they started leading themselves. They had went through it, and now they saw how to do it. And I had at that time a podcast episode that taught people how to do it. Now we got the video at a bluecollarleadership.com/book study training that somebody can go watch. So what they did was, each one of those people with each other, they facilitated another book, but they didn't do 3 chapters every day. They slowed down a little, and they did 3 chapters once a week. So it took them 10 weeks to get through the next book. And then they did another book, and they actually bought over 5,000 books, and they're cascading these book studies throughout the entire facility. 1,700 people, I assume, as they go through this, is going to be impacted.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. It was just incredible how quickly we could see transformation begin, right? Like you said, within just 3 or 4 days, hearing the stories of how people were leading differently because of the material that they were absorbing. That level of self-awareness had just grown and changed. And, we know that transformation doesn't happen in a day. It happens every day. But it was amazing how, when you accelerate the intention and the attention, then the results came so much quicker, exponentially quicker. And that was cool. That's always been a cool example for me. One of the other things that you and I have been working on is the video online trainings, the Blue Collar Leadership Academy online trainings. Speak to that for just a minute, and how you see those being a resource for leaders who are trying to get more engagement from their team, or how they're, leaders who are trying to reduce turnover and increase morale, and how those videos are a resource.
Yeah, those videos, I wish I would have had those videos when I was doing lean manufacturing consulting for all those years. Mm-hmm. But what we did was take our books. Right now we've got 7 of them. All of my normal, what I call normal Blue Collar Leadership books, there's 5 of those. And then we've got Change Happens, and we've got your book, Ladder of Influence. Mm-hmm. But basically, those books all are formatted like I was talking about earlier, 30 chapters, 3 pages each. So yeah. You and I did a 15-minute video teaching each chapter of each one of those books. So one book has about 7.5, 8 hours of video training. So what's awesome about it, there's a lot of ways different leaders can use this. You can use it obviously to develop your team at your pace on any shift. Anybody can do it. Mm-hmm. So anybody can have access to it. You can do it as a group and as a team on site. You can do it individually on site. You can do it off site. Someone can do it at home. But what I value about it, or what I would value if I was still doing lean consulting, is, as a leader, I could also pull up one of those videos and actually play it. Especially like if I was going to let's say I had a team of 10 people, I was a supervisor, and 10 people reported to me directly. Mm-hmm. And if I was a CEO, I may have like 100 supervisors, like the one I'm just about to describe. But let's say I was just one of those supervisors. I had access to the academy. I had a 10-person team. Once a week, I could pull the team in there, play a video for 15 minutes. There's also a workbook that comes with it. You and I created the workbook. It's got fill in the blanks. When we're speaking, it's on the screen, so they can fill in the blanks. And I could actually use the video, if I was a supervisor, to facilitate workforce development, leadership development, team building with my team. And I used to do that when I was a lean consultant. I bought videos of leaders like us. They're back then, those days that they were on DVD. Most of them were John Maxwell or Stephen Covey.
Oh, I know. We lugged a computer around trying to hook it up to a screen and a projector and play them. And we had our own little set of speakers we carried around.
Yeah. That's when you and I were doing it together. But I also did it as a consultant. When I was leading lean events, Kaizen events, I would play those videos and somebody else's videos, but I didn't have the workbooks and all that sort of stuff. So that's why we created that. So it's another way to use those videos. If you're using them to grow and develop your people in your organization. I mean, we've got one client who's using it, and he also uses it for onboarding, for orientation. All new employees can be required to go through a specific course, but before they go out and join the team, so they kind of get a foundational understanding. So there's lots of ways to use it, but the thing about it is, we created it like we do a lot of our content. Everything's out of an abundance mindset. I mean, leaders for $2,000, up to 2,000 people can be enrolled for 1 month and access all 7 of these courses. I mean, that's a lot of development.
Or a lot of training.
It is. I mean, most people, couldn't do all that in 1 month, but there is that much access. Or you could do one course for $1,000 for one course for 30 days, and up to 2,000 people can participate in that as well. So, some high impact individuals may want to do that on their own because you get a certificate of completion. I know when I was invested in myself, we spent a whole lot more than $1,000 to go through a course. And so, if I was a gung-ho individual and I wanted to jack up my resume and jack up my value to an organization so I could climb the ladder, I could pay $2,000 myself as an individual, and I could go through these 7 courses in a month. I could do that real easy, if I was the individual who's hungry and growing, and then I could just unsubscribe. So for $2,000, I could go through basically over 50 hours of training online, and I'd have a 30-page workbook for each of the 7 courses. All kind of ways.
That's a resume builder for sure.
All kind of ways, yeah. If I had a big company, with 1,000 people or 500 people or 1,500 people, you take $2,000 a month and divide it by however many people you got. It's almost nothing per person. I mean, if you had 2,000 people, it'd be $1 per person.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm saying that is because it's so cost effective. But what we're doing is teaching these principles. We basically become a surrogate leader for you, and you just give your folks access to it. But the reason we did that is, one reason is I wish I would have had that kind of stuff. I wish I would have had these blue collar books. I mean, I'm glad I wrote them now. But when I was out there in the blue collar world, I wish they would have been a blue collar leadership brand, because what we see is people just attached to it. Because
they're hungry.
What's that?
They're hungry for it. People are hungry for growth and development opportunities when they understand it can help them have a better life.
Yep. And again, I recommend go check out episode 11, and you'll see a frontline guy who's hungry, who's facilitating these book studies. So check out episode 11 on the YouTube channel, Real People Getting Real Results. And episode 13, Ria actually has a business owner who brought us in. And for somebody who may be watching this that says, well, I don't know, I don't know what my folks, I'd be a little nervous about investing in bringing in something like this. Don't know what it would be like. Go listen to George Grebe. He's owner of electrical construction and an excavation company, who brought us in a while back. What was cool, though, he had never brought anything like this into his company. He brought us in. He didn't know what to expect, brought us in for a half day. And then it was like a week or two we recorded that episode. So it was really, really fresh.
He was quick. Yeah.
Yeah. And I like to go back and watch that video myself, because you just see that leader was hungry. And then he wasn't sure if his people would be hungry. He knew he was hungry to grow and develop. But then he went and found out there were a whole lot of people in his company, and he hasn't stopped. I talked to him recently, and he's still doing the book studies, and they still making it happen. So that's where the videos come in. I highly recommend having us come in and speak to your team. Have some books. We got our special offer where the books are available. We come in and speak. And then you take all these books and now you go lead. That's one of the things real that a lot of leaders don't understand. They don't want the books when we talk about our book deals. Some leaders just want us to come in and speak, but they don't want the books. And they don't understand what we're trying to get the leaders to lead.
Sure.
We don't want them to keep bringing us in over and over and over and over and over. We don't want to be their leaders. We want to support them as leaders. We want to be a tool in their toolbox. But a lot of leaders who've never led, they're still just trying to manage. They're hiring somebody like us to come in and speak and develop their team. And then, they leave and they expect them to have personal transformation after a day of developing themselves, and it doesn't happen. So our whole package of everything we do is to try to motivate and inspire the leaders to actually lead. Like facilitating a book study is a leadership activity. Hiring somebody to do that is a management activity, right? A lot of people can manage. It's easy to write a check and bring somebody in to do some development. But what's truly going to transform an organization is when the leader actually leads. And that's where even a top leader, like a business owner, could use those videos. He could bring the whole team in, or she could bring in the whole team, the whole company, play a video, pause it like I used to do when I was playing Covey's videos. I might play a minute, pause it, and talk for 10 minutes or 20 minutes, and then play it, basically interpreting what does this mean in our company. That's what I can't necessarily do at a basic level for companies. That's what the leader needs to do. And that's where a book study is more about personal transformation, but these videos can be used to provoke thought, raise awareness. A leader could play the video, have everybody sitting in the room, pause, talk about what you and I just said, talk about what does this mean in our company, ask questions of the people in the room. When have you seen this work? When have you seen us do the opposite? And we got the negative effect of this, from doing the wrong thing. So that's where those videos can be powerful. Besides just developing yourself, which is one intention of them, leaders can use those as a tool to facilitate discussion. I mean, that's what I would be doing if I was. I mean, it's what I did. That's how I got to be where I'm at today. Was actually doing that, 15 years ago or so, with somebody else's content. That's why I'm saying that it ain't just us trying to sell something. I know it will work.
Yeah. And while we're talking about that, we know it will work. Dig in just a little bit. Why does character development, leadership development, why does that decrease turnover, increase retention, increase engagement, increase morale, build trust in the organization? Speak to that just a little bit. Like, we've seen it over and over and over, but kind of just paint the picture for why this helps the root cause issues that are causing all of the leadership frustrations that leaders face.
Yeah, so a lot of leaders hadn't really thought about it. Again, we provoke thought, we raise awareness. When we're out speaking, one of the things we ask them is, when you terminate people, when people are coming and going, even if you're not terminating them, even if they may be terminating you, right? They fire the boss and they leave. The boss can fire the people, but the people can also fire the boss. It's call quit and go get a job somewhere else, right? So it works both ways. And but I always ask leaders, are people leaving due to competency or due to character? And a lot of times they never had really thought about it. So you can see them kind of start thinking about it. And it doesn't take them but a minute, and they start to realize people are leaving because of character. Even if the leaders are firing the people, they're usually firing them because of the character of those people. If people are quitting, firing the boss to go work somewhere else, they're usually firing the boss because of something to do with character. It's usually not the leader's competence that they're firing the boss for. It's the boss's character. So what we do is all these different principles, we start teaching these principles, helping people understand that it is character. Character is everything that we are. Is how we do what we do. It's why we do it. It's when we do it. It's who we do it with or who we don't do it with. So as we grow and develop the character of the team members, the team members start to respect each other more, because the one thing we hear a lot of is communication problems, right?
Yes.
The root cause of lack of communication is character problem somewhere. And when we're speaking and teaching, we can break that down. But the key point is influence is based on trust.
Yep.
And you want everybody in the organization to come together. They got to trust each other. You ain't going to have a high performance team of people who don't trust each other. Not going to happen. You find any high performance team, it doesn't matter what industry, it doesn't matter if it's a sports team, it doesn't matter white collar, blue collar, volunteer organization. It makes absolutely zero difference. If you got a high performance team of people, they trust each other. Yep. They have shared values. They have a high degree of character, and they're focused on the mission and the vision, whatever that is. Everybody's aligned behind the same principles and aligned behind the same mission. And when we go in, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to teach some principles, get these leaders to do book studies, all of it for one reason, is to start getting the people in the organization to align behind these high impact character principles. And sometimes people say, well, I don't want to read books. Okay, what do you want to do? You got to do something.
Yeah.
You got to grow and develop the people some kind of way. Doesn't matter how you do it. I agree with that, but you got to do it. You can't say, well, I don't want to do book study, so you don't do nothing.
Right.
That ain't gonna work. So now
that won't move you forward.
That's right. And we made it easy. We got the book studies. We got the book study training videos.
Yep.
We got the academy videos. Our books are on audio. We got our podcast. So we got audio, we got video, we got books. And we've got these tools for ourselves. That's what we use, these same type tools when we're in training and developing people. But most of what we do is we're teaching, from our memory. We got this stuff. We've lived it. We've learned it. But if a leader can't get up and talk endlessly like we can for days and weeks and months with new content, you got to get that content from somewhere, and you got to develop your people. So when folks bring us in, that's what we're trying to do, is show them in this whole package with the ultimate end goal of, you don't need us, but you've got to go do it. And the most effective clients we have, the leaders do the development. They may bring us in once a year and stuff like that to motivate and inspire the team or to talk about something specific. But when we're not there, they're still doing stuff.
The leaders are leading.
Like Jason Denham, he does a 1 month video the first Saturday of every month. He does an hour and a half. Anybody in his company and people outside of his company can get on. He's the vice president in episode 1 of this series, Real People Getting Real Results series on the YouTube channel. And he also conducts 4 30-minute book studies covering just one chapter with 10 different people in each study. So he's covering 40 of his leaders in his company. He's doing a one-on-one book study. He repeats the same chapter 4 times each week with 10 different people in each meeting. That's him. His frontline leaders. I've got my book, Blue Collar Leadership Toolbox Tips. Those have they're only 2 pages for each tip, and it's not even 2 full pages. You can cover a tip in 45 to 60 seconds. We're talking about a minute.
Micro lessons.
Yep. And Jason's got, people out on the front lines who are sharing these tips. I don't know if it's once a week in a safety meeting or once a day. It's at least once a week. So there's all kind of stuff. Jason has access. He's got the all access, the $2,000 a month subscription. He's got that. So every employee in his company, every team member, they're at different levels. They're going through whichever courses they want to go through on their own. And some of them have went through all of them. They went through all 7, and different people at different levels. So all of that, the reason I'm sharing about Jason, that's a high impact leader that's working to grow and develop his character, but he's also trying to do the same thing he brings us in that everybody else brings us in. Even if they don't know why they bring us in, Rhea, we know why they bring us in. They're bringing us in to align people behind high impact character traits. As many people as you can get to get behind these character traits, meaning I want to learn because I want to get better myself. The more people you get to do that, the more people you can get to buy in, the greater the output, the greater the performance, the greater the teamwork, everything gets better. And, Chick-fil-A was a client of ours for 3 years, and we talk about them a lot, but we were not there because they hadn't been doing nothing previously. We were there because they've been doing this for 50, 60 years, however long it's been. It's been over about 55, 60 years. They've been doing what Rhea and I talk about nonstop developing the people. So that's what a lot of organizations bring us in. Sometimes they bring us in. They've never done anything like this before. They don't know what's about to happen. Other times they've been doing it for years with other people, and we're just the next people. And they're trying to expose their teams to all different kind of people. But the key point is they're all talking about the same character traits. They're just telling different stories to help support them. You know, what's that guy say about you taking a bath, Rhea, or taking a shower?
Zig Ziglar. He says motivation doesn't last, but neither does bathing. That's why we recommend it daily.
Yep. And Simon Sinek, what's he say about the dentist?
Leadership and transformation is kind of like going to the dentist, right? If all you do is go to the dentist twice a year and you don't brush and floss your teeth are going to fall out of your head. It's not going to the dentist twice a year that keeps your teeth healthy. It's the daily brushing and flossing, right? Leadership and personal growth being the same way. It's not the once a year or twice a year conference that you go to. It's the daily little leadership growth opportunities, whether that's reading a chapter in a book study or watching a 15-minute video once a week and discussing it. You just have to figure out and be intentional about how do we continue to grow? How do we continue to grow? Because it's important, right? It's one of those things like exercise that you have to be intentional about making it happen, because it doesn't come find you like some of the other fires you've got to put out or some of the other things that you have to get done. And yet it's critically important for long-term success as an individual and in organizations. So we have to be intentional about that daily little leadership drip.
So I wanted you to say that because pretty much when people bring us in, we're like going to the dentist.
Sure. It's an event.
We're the event, right? We're not the process. We're the event in that moment. When we're in the room speaking to people, we're the event. But then when they go back and they watch these videos on their own, or they go through the book study, primarily when they go through the book study, that's the daily brushing and flossing, right? That's the drip. We come in, we spray everybody with a fire hose. We maybe do it for 2 hours or 4 hours or 8 hours, however long the folks want us to be there. We're spraying them with all this stuff, and it's a lot of stuff. Most of it's going past them. But then when we leave, they keep that momentum going. They just keep, I call it the leadership drip. That's what the leaders got to do. Got to keep a drip going somehow, some way. And we provide a lot of ways to help those leaders who want to keep the drip going. That's what's most important is the drip. It's not having us come in the room. We may be a catalyst to motivate and inspire people to want to go do the drip, but it's the drip that's gonna do all the transforming and changing of people.
Mm.
And Rhea, let me just say real quick, just a couple of examples of that.
Yeah.
A few weeks back, we were at Turberg Taylor Americas in Columbus, Mississippi.
Yeah.
And they're a new company. They build little, what they call those little trucks?
Terminal tractors.
Terminal tractors. Yeah, they look like a little 18-wheeler, but they're kind of small, and they move around containers like they go on a ship. They move them around in the port. And they got about 60-something employees. They're expanding. They just started building these trucks in like January or something. So they're just getting going. But they want to put the kind of culture that Rhea and I talk about. That's what they want in their organization. So they want to get it in from the start before they start expanding. But they already expanded a little bit faster than they thought they would. They already ahead of the game on their productivity, everything. They got a phenomenal team. So Rhea and I, we went in, did a full day on Tuesday and a full day on Thursday back in 1st of July.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going back at the end of August, the end of this month, and we're going to do another Tuesday full day and another Thursday full day. And we're talking about different content this time. But in between, last time we were there and the next time we're going to be there, on purpose, we left them 6 weeks. So they had a full 6 weeks. And they're diving into that same book I talked about earlier that we did at Bluebird Bus. They're leading themselves through a chapter per day for 6 weeks. So 5 days a week times 6, 30. That's 30 chapters. They will have this team of top 10. There's top 10 leaders, the site leader and his top 10 or other 9 leaders, including him is 10. They're going through this book study on their own. So when we get back, they will have gone through the supervision book on their own.
Mm-hmm.
we taught them some other content when we were there before, but we're going to go over that content and teach them some more. So we come in, sprayed them with a fire hose for a couple of days. They kept the drip going while we've been gone. And then we're going to come in, spray them with a fire hose again. And then hopefully they understand that how much they got out of this 6-week book study they've done. And now they've already purchased enough books that now they can start cascading these different books throughout the rest of their team, the other 50 plus team members that they have, and start putting that foundation in place. But it's funny, Rhea, you know, after the second day, they had 2 full days. The leader there, he was like, we want everybody to go through these classes that we've been through. They saw the value. And now the leader realized, if my team goes through the training that I went through, they're going to be easy to lead. They're going to lead themselves better. They're going to follow better. I'm going to have less frustration. They're going to have less frustration. We're going to all be on the same page. And that's what I loved about Jason. That's a different Jason. Jason Real.
So, I'm getting a lot of names can be confusing.
Yep.
What's the greatest, what's been most rewarding for you when you talk about real people getting real results? What are some of the results, or what's one result that sticks out as having been the most rewarding for you, personally or professionally?
Yeah, and you can witness this what I'm about to tell you, because I've already talked about it once. But if somebody wants to know what is so rewarding to me, go watch episode 11 with Jim McEwen. When I recorded that episode with him and I got to interview him, and he was so fired up, he was so emotional, he was so authentic, that what you see in that video, that's what's rewarding to me. And it doesn't matter if Jim happened to be on the front lines, entry level position, but it wouldn't matter what level Jim was at. You'll see actually all of those folks, Rhea. This whole series is a bunch of people that we've interacted with, especially me specifically. But some of them, they either I've been coaching or mentoring these folks, or they've been reading my books and then they reach out or something like that. That's the people that we interview on the series, or I interview on the series. And that's exactly what's most rewarding to me, is when I see other people having a better life, because that's why we do what we do. That's why I do what I do. I want to help people have a better life at work and at home. And that's the other thing, Rhea. I didn't really touch on it, but when we go in and we spray folks with a fire hose, and then the leaders actually facilitate the leadership drip, they're helping people have a better life. We're helping people have a better life. And again, I'm not just talking about at work. Right now, I'm primarily talking about at home. When I hear people telling me, you know, and I've got these stories, and if you want to really hear some of my personal stories, go to the podcast, listen to the first 1 to 6, 7 episodes, and you can find on the Blue Collar Leadership YouTube channel, there's a playlist. The podcast is actually uploaded there. You can listen to the audio, but there's a lot of different playlists from different series on my podcast that are on the YouTube channel, so that you can find them real easy. There's playlists for them.
Sure.
And there's a playlist for my story, From There to Here, where I just share about, I think it's 5 or 6 episodes where I kind of take the listener through how my journey started, back from machine operator to basically when I started that podcast, which was in 2018 at the time. So lots of information, but you watch me interview anybody on this series, or you listen to me interview people on my podcast on the audio series, there's a playlist for that too. Anybody who's getting better because they know me or have read my book, that's what's rewarding for me. That's why I gave up consulting. That's why I gave up that big income. That's why I sold my Corvette Z06 and my Ford Raptor. We sold our house. That's why I gave up everything.
They had claw marks on them.
What's that?
They had claw marks on them.
Oh, yeah, both of those vehicles had claw marks. I didn't want to give them up, but I wanted to go in a hurry, and you were with me, and you wanted to go in a hurry. So we gave up basically everything. I gave up my Corvette Z06 and my Ford Raptor truck, started driving a Nissan Sentra. Nothing wrong with a Nissan Sentra, but it ain't a Corvette Z06 and it ain't a Ford Raptor. And you joined me. And I'm talking about, this was around 2012, 2013. Maybe actually I sold my Corvette in 2010 or 11. I can't even remember. Somewhere back in there, I was preparing for what was to come, which was me letting all my contracts run out and going to zero income from lean consulting and saying, okay, I want to restart my journey doing what Rhea and I do today. And then she joined me. She gave up her Hummer and started driving a Toyota Corolla. And eventually we sold our house and moved up near Atlanta, got an apartment. And here we go, Rhea. We've done some amazing things, but
yeah,
we've spoken at Yale. We did 10 half-day workshops for the U.S. Navy at Naval Base San Diego. All kind of cool things we've done. Those are cool accomplishments. But what's rewarding are the individuals who talk to me and let me know that y'all have impacted my life and it's better. Mm-hmm. That's why we started this series right here.
Yep.
Because I decided I need to share these people and their stories with other people. So they can let these people motivate and inspire people. And that's what I tell people. If you watched any of the other series, I always, thank them for helping me help others, because the people that are that I'm interviewing are the ones that are helping me help others with their story. So if you're listening to this, my phone number is 334-728-4143. If I've impacted you in any kind of way positively, because you either met me, I've coached you or mentored you, or you've read my books or listened to my podcast or watched some of these videos, somehow directly or indirectly, I've impacted you and helped you have a better life. If you'd like to get on here and let me interview you and talk about it, and you can talk about other stuff you've done too, not just about how I've impacted you. You can share other books you might have read or sacrifices you've made, anything about your story who can help, or that will help me motivate and inspire other people to go climb to the next level and beyond. Reach out to me so that we can make that happen, because that's what this series is all about. People helping other people live a better life. And I'm so appreciative of all those people. So that was a good question, Rhea. And like always got a long answer. You ever noticed?
You do that. Is there anything I didn't, because I didn't have like a prepared list of questions. Is there anything I didn't ask that maybe you wanted to touch on or share a little bit about?
Yeah, I'll share. I don't know if I can squeeze us in for the top of the hour, but we'll wrap it up somewhere after this one. But it's something I share a lot. And it's the personal side, right? It's the side of my son, Eric. He's 33 now, but from age 15 to 19, he hated me. Me and his mother had joint custody pretty much the whole time. We got divorced around 95 or somewhere in there. And when Eric was 4 or 5 years old. So pretty much after that, we had joint custody. He'd live with me a week and he'd stay with his mom a week. And so it's back and forth. And then 2000s when Rhea and I met and got together. So Eric was 9 years old, 9 or 10, 8, somewhere around in there. And so we had him every other week. But by the time he got 15, he realized he didn't have to stay with us anymore if he didn't want to. He could just be a pain in the butt and say he's going to stay with his mom. And that's what he did, because he didn't like me as a person, as his dad. And so we had almost no relationship between 15 and 19. But when he was 17 is when I discovered this kind of content. And so from 17 to 19, he still didn't have a good relationship with me. We didn't have one basically at all, unless he kind of absolutely needed something. But 2 years into me working on me, and my mom telling him, your dad's getting better, you need to give him another chance. Your dad's getting better, you need to give him another chance. And also my mom started reading the books I had been reading, because she wanted to know what in the world's causing you to change so much. So then she could start articulating and talking to him about what was actually causing me to change. So I was basically borrowing influence from her without knowing it. She was influencing him to give me another chance. And eventually he did. And that's when he was 19. So 4 years of us not having a relationship almost at all. And because I had been working on me for 2 years, I was able to rebuild that relationship. And he actually started working with me as a lean consultant with no experience, and he killed it. And he killed it because he was reading all these books. He didn't kill it because he had 20 years of manufacturing experience like I did. He killed it because he was reading these books, learning how to lead himself well and how to lead others well. And literally after 3 weeks of training, which was really just watching me do it, he was on his own by himself. I was not even in the same state. And at 19 years old, he was facilitating Kaizen events, meaning leading teams of 6 to 10 people through process improvement. And he killed it. he did that for a couple of years until I quit doing that and started doing this. The reason I want to tell you all that story was, if you would have met me when he was not liking me and not talking to me, I would have told you that it was his mother's family, his stepfather's family. I would have told you it was anybody besides me that was causing that problem. What I know now, because I've worked on me, is there ain't but one person on this planet that had stopped him from talking to me, and it was me.
Yeah.
And so I fixed that because I fixed me. And because I did it in a way that was trustworthy and it was authentic, he wanted to know what caused me to change. So he started reading these books. So just like in the workplace, when I'm reading these books trying to get better, and then my son is reading these books trying to get better, it's easy for our relationship to get better because we both trying to get better and align behind the same principles. So I wanted to share that story, Rhea, because that's an example of it happening in the personal life. And me and you, look behind me. Those are some of my books. Look behind Rhea. Those are some of her books. We're growing together, husband and wife. And it makes life a whole lot easier when we're on the same page, aligned behind the same principles.
Sure.
And this is what we're trying to do when we go into organizations. We're trying to get leaders to lead, and then high impact followers to lead themselves well, but also follow the leader well. Because the best leaders were always the best followers, and the best leaders are still really good followers because they follow the people. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of wrap all that into to the end of it, just on a personal note.
It puts it in context, right, of why we do what we do and how these principles absolutely help us at work, but they help us influence and have better relationships at home. And to me, I think most of us, that's where our heart is. Of course, we want to get results professionally. Of course, we want to influence team members and the people around us at work. But a lot of our frustrations happen on a personal level and personal relationships, as well as those conflicts at work and relationships at work. So what I love about it is you learn the principle once and you can apply it everywhere and get results. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, if you want a better family at home, a better family life, you got to get better. If you want a better life at work, you got to get better. And it doesn't matter at work what your position or title is. It doesn't matter where you're at. But if you're a formal authority leader, you got to get better, and you got to help your team get better. And that means you got to lead. You can't just tell people to go do something. They've got to see you become a leader. You got to become a leader worth following. And we always like to share a quote from Michael Josephson. He says, you don't have to be sick to get better. Yeah. And we're not saying there's anything wrong with you. We're assuming if you're watching us, you're listening to us, you're reading this type of content, that you want to get better. And that's what we want to help you do. We're doing it. You look behind us. We're doing it for ourselves, and we're trying to motivate and inspire others to do it. So thanks for coming on and interviewing me today, Rhea, and asking some good questions. Get me talking.
Sure thing.
Ready
to wrap it up?
Yep. So for everyone listening or watching, I really hope you go back, if you haven't already, dive into some of these episodes in the Real People Getting Real Results series. Go check out the YouTube channel. Subscribe there if you like it, because there's new ones coming out. And we've gotten a lot of people already, but sometimes, we don't know but so many people, Rhea, and then they're busy and we're busy and it's hard to connect. So in the future, whenever we don't have someone to interview, we're going to do some just leadership development talks and things like that, like we've already done. And whenever we can get someone lined up, I've still got about 25 or so people to line up and get on the show. But again, a lot of things have to happen for us to be able to get our schedule aligned. All right. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. You want to talk about leadership, personal growth, and development, call me. I'm always open, but I ain't always available. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time.